Oh, what is that?
It could be just a crap old
Here,
cable.
I'm going to mute myself real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, that was
it's
it.
a fucking interface. Okay, it's fine, Dan. It doesn't matter. There's nothing we can do about that.
Well, no, yeah, on your side, that's going to be another hour of editing for me.
Yeah, so it's no big deal. We'll do it.
Yeah,
in
it's no
post.
big deal, man.
Just send it and fix it in post-production. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it was a good time, honey, under the sky. Yeah, it was a good time, honey, just you and I. Feeling alright.
Hey, welcome to All Wheels Podcast. This is Max. With me always is Brady.
You.
And Evan.
What's up? I'm still laughing from the pre-show bullshit.
Yeah. Well, too bad you guys don't get to hear some of the stuff that happens before we start talking.
Well, we want
have
to
a-
keep our listener.
That's right.
Yeah, we're professional. If
We're
nothing
professionals.
else.
Bob, we're looking out for you.
One guy.
Fuck Bob. He doesn't even email us. I know.
Hey, we have a special guest tonight. Our good buddy Dan Leaming.
Hey, how's it going, fellas? Happy to be here.
Dan is a longtime friend of ours for a few decades here. We asked him to come on because we've never really gotten into a talk about Bonneville salt flat racing, and Dan has a bunch of experience about that. So we're going to pick his brain about that tonight. So he's in Fort Collins with me here in Colorado, but he was raised right up the road in good old Laramie, Wyoming. He's a husband and a father and a super accomplished wrench, motorcycle rider. And one of the things he owns that I've always just been psyched about is his 1962 Ford Galaxy Wagon. So we want to,
wow.
Super sweet.
we want to start off by
That
talking.
is
having
not
Dan.
an everyday car you see around either.
No,
No,
definitely not.
It's sweet, and so we wanted to talk. We got some questions for Dan, but we just figured we would start by just saying, man, tell us about the 62 Wagon.
Oh, man. Yeah, so let's see. The 62 came into my life kind of a weird set of circumstances. This was back in like the early 2000s. You know, I was in college and broke, had a whole bunch of greaser friends. And
Perfect time to buy an old
friends
car, by the way.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, when you have no money, that's the best time to, invest in something.
There, done that.
Especially a complete money
Yeah.
pit. Yeah, man. So, I mean, I was, kind of a lot more active over on the Ham, the Jalopy Journal. And
Yeah.
there was a guy over there. His username was Malcolm because he looks like Malcolm in the Middle. But his
nice.
real name's Nick Hosing. And he had a 62 Galaxy two-door that was red, two-tone red with a white top. It had kind of a red primer body on it that him and his dad had fixed up.
Oh,
and
sweet.
I always thought, man, that car looks fucking rad. And I had already, I had a 51 Ford that I had just unloaded to a friend of mine in Denver who was going to build that into a Bonneville car. I just finished chopping it and he really liked the car and I was kind of getting burned out on it.
Sweet.
So, that went down to Hank. So yeah, I just started looking around for like 62 Fords. Like, man, I never really noticed the early 60s Galaxies. I was, always an early 60s Ford fan myself with my, my first pickup being a 62 F100.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was looking around on eBay just for something close by that I could flip, and kind of out on the eastern side of the state over in Montrose, there was a listing for a 62 Galaxy wagon that looked pretty straight, and I was like, oh okay, and it said all original, had like 80,000 original miles on it or something. So yeah, so I put some bids on it, and I think I paid $1,400 through eBay.
Oh,
shit.
Sight unseen, hadn't even
Was
driven
it
it.
running
Nothing. I was
at
like,
the
you know
time?
what? So I talked to the seller and he said, it had been sitting in my field forever and ever. It was in the family and it got parked, a decade or two before. But he said, I think it'll run. It's like, okay. So, we loaded up a couple friends and my father-in-law's truck and a borrowed trailer. And we drove, from Laramie down to Montrose and dug this thing out of a field.
Wow.
And we hooked it up to a gas can and a battery and it fired up and we could drive it on the trailer.
Oh, nice.
So that was kind of the start. And like my plan, what I really wanted to do was just cut the coil springs, put some blocks in the back, slam it and make it into a Bellflower style lowrider,
Rad.
with Astro Supreme wheels,
Yep.
the 1-inch pinner whites,
Yeah.
some Bellflower tips, clean it, and then just turn around and flip it, make some money, and then move on to the next thing. So yeah, so we got it back to town, and and a bunch of my friends were either instructors at the hot rod school in Laramie or students there, and we all just kind of worked on it a little bit. And then the more, I'm one of those people that gets attached to the vehicles. and it always happens. I always think I'm going to flip stuff. Whereas like Max and Evan, I mean, you guys buy and sell stuff before you get out of bed, and as I work on this thing, I'm like, I kind of really like this car. Nobody has a 62 Galaxy around here. I had never seen a 62 other than Nick's. And in my entire life, I've only seen 2 other wagons, 62 wagons in person ever.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's kind of rare. It's kind of unique. And wagons are like not that desirable. A lot of people liked them for like Demolition Derby but they weren't really like the 2-door hardtop calling that people really, seek after.
Yeah.
Which in a way kind of made it cool. It was like you could get them cheaper.
Cool.
They're big and ugly and just rad, because they're so big and, I think cooler than a 4-door. So yeah, so I started working on that, and then the car just kind of evolved over time. I did the Bellflower lowrider thing for a while. My then girlfriend, now wife, we took a 2,000-mile road trip in it down through the desert Southwest and did all the national parks down there. And
awesome!
Had awesome adventures going through all the places down there in the wagon. And
was it still the original motor when you did that?
No, so that car was born with a Z-Code 390, which is a hydraulic 375 horsepower 390 engine with a Cruise-O-Matic transmission behind it. And one of the big trips my wife and I took, then girlfriend, now wife, we were actually outside of Ouray, between Ouray and Durango, going over, the pass there on $1 Million Highway, and we lost the transmission.
Oops.
So then upgrades start happening after that. Like,
Wait, how'd you get it out of there? That's a sketchy road.
So we actually drove back to Durango, and I begged the guys at Walmart to allow me to use their service bay to actually dump the fluid out of it and try to put new fluid in, and that didn't work. So I had to drive home from Ouray back to Laramie with no second gear.
Oh.
So it was, it was 20 miles an hour. All the way from Durango, going up those hills, all the way to Ouray.
You drove it that far.
Yeah. So, but so then that that evolved into a C6 transmission with an E40D wide ratio kit in it. That setup was pretty rad for a long time. Ran really well, and then I kind of started getting bored with it again, and was like, well, I'd really like to have 3 pedals in this thing. Nobody runs a wagon with 3 pedals. I was like, well, 5-speed would be really nice, then I can get really good mileage on the highway if I really wanted, and make the engine a little more radical. So then the C6 came out, and then the TKO 600 went in, and now I got 3 pedals in the car, and did some engine work on it, headers, crossbred it with a Quadrajet carburetor.
This was all on this original 390?
Pretty much, until the 390 really started to die, and I built that 428 for it. So
that's when I rode, like, you had it running a couple years ago.
That was with the 428.
Okay, that's what I thought. That motor was absolutely insane.
Yeah. We ended up on Nextdoor, didn't we? Leaving black marks all over the road, and the people on the Nextdoor app were complaining.
They kiss my ass. Dan shows up. I thought I was rad. Dan shows up in this thing. Holy shit! That car will blow your fucking mind out your asshole. It is nuts.
That's awesome.
It is totally absurd car.
How much horsepower are you getting out of that thing?
Oh, I mean, it's probably 425 maybe. Okay. It's it's an Ironhead 428. It's not super crazy.
Okay.
But it's got a pretty healthy roller cam in it, and it's got 411 gears in the back end now. That was with the TKO 600 5-speed. So yeah, it would definitely get out of its own way really quick for a car that weighs 4,600 pounds empty.
Yeah.
So it's a big car, but yeah, super fun, man.
Jeez, I love that.
So did you run this? I think you sent us a video. Did you run this car at Bonneville?
Yeah. So fast forward, probably 10 years after owning this thing, the 390 started getting a little bit tired. I was like, okay, we'll take that out. And just going through Craigslist, there was a guy in Nebraska that had a 428, and he's like, yeah, I want just a couple $100 for it. And, of course, every FE motor is a 427, and the seller never knows what they have. And even people who think they know what they have don't know what they have. So I was like, this is a huge crapshoot. So I sent the guy some instructions. Actually, I talked to him on the phone. I said, all right, I want you to knock out a freeze plug, grab a drill bit of this size, try to put it in between the cylinders through this freeze plug hole, and that can help me kind of narrow down if this actually is a 428 or not. And it, this drill bit wouldn't go through there, and I'm like, it's kind of looking like it might be a 428. So yeah, my wife, who this would have been 2011, because she was pregnant at the time, so we load me up in the Subaru, and we go zooming out to Nebraska. And I disassembled this 428 in this guy's driveway, this huge oil slick afterwards, just a disaster. Put the block in the back of the car, put the crankshaft behind the passenger seat. Awesome. The car reeks like oil. There's just, it looks like a super fun sight in this guy's front yard when I was done with it. It's just like, I'm sorry, but I can't lift. He didn't have a cherry picker. I'm like, I don't know how to get this thing into my car, you know? So we just disassembled it and threw it in there piece by piece. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So we got the 428. I built that. Yeah, I talked to some really brilliant guys on some of the FE forums who had some really good suggestions, and some other friends who were racing FEs that had spare heads. So I got a set of ported heads for it, and just a regular Performer RPM intake, a 750 Quadrajet, because I've always kind of liked the Quadrajet carb.
So you must have some Black Magic. Oh yeah, or people with Black Magic.
Oh yeah, yeah. Once you get that carb dialed in, it's fantastic. But if you don't know what you're doing, it'll drive you insane. So let's see here. This would have been 2014. 2014. So I decided, earlier that year, I was like, it'd be really rad to drive the car out there, put all the race gear, the tires, and everything in the back. Let's drive from, I'm living in Fort Collins now. Let's drive out to Bonneville and put all the race gear on it, race it. In one of the amateur classes out there that one of the sanctioning bodies had. And then strip it down, put back in street gear, and then drive it home.
So awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
what does it take to do that? If one of our listeners just wants to do something like that, like what's the process of getting even like signed up? Is it hard to do something like that?
Yeah. So Bonneville in general, there's a couple different sanctioning bodies who, lease time and space and all that from, the BLM who owns it. We own it really.
Right.
And there's the SCTA, Southern California Timing Association. They're the biggest one. They're the guys that started with the dry lake beds in Bonneville. There's also the Utah Salt Flats Racing Association. There's the Bonneville Motorcycle Racing Association. There's a couple other smaller ones that race out there. So really kind of the entry into this and what I did, which is kind of the most easiest and cheapest way to get into it. So the USFRA, they do an event in September called the World of Speed, and they have two classes out there that you can bring a fairly close to a street legal, street car out there, and with some appropriate but kind of lower level safety precautions, go through tech, pay your entry fee. And in those classes, they have a class for 130 miles per hour and another class for 150 miles per hour. And in those classes, it's run very much like the Bonneville class racing, where you have to make two runs within, and they put it within a bracket within, 130,000 to 139,999 for the 130. And you have to make two runs within that. And you have 6 opportunities to do it. And for the 150 club, similar story. You got to run from 150,000 to 159,999. You got to do it twice. And then your time is the average of those two.
Wait, what do you mean you have 6? You get 6
you
tries.
Have 6 tries.
2 good runs.
Yeah.
You have to back it up essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I took the wagon out there, ran in the 130 club. The 150 required a roll cage. I think it requires a driver's suit, which, it's a couple $100 for like a low level fire suit. It's not anything crazy, but
race quip.
Yeah. And you can take at the time it was like a Snell rated helmet, motorcycle helmet was fine, and a few other things. And, I had to install like a drive shaft safety loop. I had actually purchased some Front Runner, pizza cutter, 3-inch wide mag wheels. I had a set of center lines. I had another set of welds that had like, a mismatched set of, they had between the two, they were matched sets of, just front drag bias ply tires from like a drag strip that still had tread on them. And I paid $100 for each one of those sets. So I had $200 worth of tires.
Oh yeah,
threw those in.
totally comfortable just running 150 on old set of tires.
Hey, 130, no problem, man. They were
130,
dry
yeah.
cracked. I was like, hey, this will be okay. I did have to air one of the tires had a leak in. I had to air it up while I was waiting to do my runs. So it's running off the battery. The little pumps just melting down in the sun. Like, okay, it's got 60 psi. Let's run.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so the entry into doing this, you can do it. You can go build a purpose-built car, big ass streamliner, and dump your inheritance into it, whatever. Or you can go and it's a couple $100 to enter this and do some upgrades to your car or your bike. And go out there and do that. So yeah, that was 2014 running the car, and then I returned 2 years later with a bike and took my wife and my daughter out there, and they got to watch their old man go race out there on a CBR 1000 RR.
Oh,
so
awesome.
that was the second foray.
What did I
racing
forget? You
there.
did 130 on the bike, right?
No, so the bike was in the 150 club.
Oh, it was 150.
So that bike did, I think my highest of the two was 157. So
have you done any SCTA runs out there when they're out there on Speed Week, or are at this point you're more running the motorcycles?
Well, so the interesting thing about so the Utah Salt Flats Racing Association, they recognize the SCTA records.
I see.
And so they will accept those. So if you are doing SCTA actual class racing for SCTA records, you can run those in September, the USFRA event, and they'll honor those. They'd still do the track prep and all that stuff. I haven't done any of the SCTA stuff because that brings you into another echelon of cost and commitment. You're at that point, you're building a purpose-built race vehicle of some kind, a bike, a car, a streamliner.
You're not going to see too many production runs out there. Or these production classes, I'd say. Well,
quote unquote production.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, there's still the the guys that are putting in, they're reading over the class rules very carefully to know exactly what they can change and can't change, even for something like a production class, which is supposed to be as the vehicle is delivered, more or less.
Exactly.
So yeah, but that's something I would like to do on the horizon down the road.
Wait, how many cars reasonably do 150 in a production class? Are you only talking about like?
Modern cars probably more than you'd think. Yeah, I mean everything nowadays has like
a lot,
900 horsepower, and wraps itself around a tree easily. I mean, take your Hellcat out there, or all these bonkers cars that make 1,000 horsepower and stuff. And
I'm sure we're gonna get to is, say your clock says 150, but your rear tires could be doing 170, 180, something like that, because there is a certain amount of slip that you have to be mindful and aware of when you're out in the salt.
Sure. Well, and and Evan and I talked about this a little bit too, the speedometer itself being inherently inaccurate above a certain speed.
That's right.
On the Honda, this was a 06 CBR 1000 RR, 180 horsepower, had a K&N and a pipe on it and a power commander. Bike just flew. When I was doing in the 150s, the bike was registering in the 180s, as indicated.
Yeah, that's crazy. I still am amazed it's off by that.
Yeah.
Huge margin of error.
We got into the little discussion about why, a factory Hayabusa won't do 200 out there, even though it may say it is. It's simply not going to do it.
Look, Honda wouldn't lie on their speedo, man. If it says it. Oh, actually, I know how you solve it. You just get one of those certified cop speedos, bolt it on, and it's certified. So that you're doing whatever it says it is, right?
Yeah,
I mean, GPS speedometers are.
No, I think that's why we got into it, because I was like, why weren't you? If you know you have that margin of error, why weren't you running like a, strap your phone on the dash or something and use a GPS app or something? Remember, we were talking something about that, like other ways to monitor it accurately or something.
Yeah, and in the Wagon, I did have that. I had a GPS that was actually mounted in, because the factory speedometer is I mean, it's dancing the night away. It doesn't know what's going on above 120.
It's
those
a
cables don't like to spin
suggestion
that
of
fast.
speed.
The old cosmoline that's in that cable is just liquefying into
louder
plasma.
than the motor.
Yeah.
That's
Well, a lot of the times, maybe not so much on the Fords, but the drive gear in the speedometer was plastic.
Oh yeah.
So that would just freaking, I mean, if it didn't just completely
melts.
incinerate. It would definitely obliterate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obliterate.
Well, I've had the one in the Falcon screams it. I've had that car to 100 indicated, and that thing is fucking making so much noise.
65,
It sounds like
I think, is
it's
what we're talking
get the
about
hell
here.
out of here, Brady. That thing sounds like it's about to just
Almost made highway
completely
speed.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. Actually, I think that is maxed out on that speed.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it.
I should tell you guys about my first time out there, though, what kind of got my feet wet into this, if that's
So one thing that I am really interested in, maybe just getting your perspective on, is I have been extremely passionate, interested, infatuated with, say, the Bonneville Salt Flats, and just stepping foot out there, and not only just like walking the same ground as all of these like legendary like hot rod greats and racing legends, is really getting out there on, whether it's a motorcycle, a car, on something, just to get out there and just see what I could do on the salt. So I'm really interested in seeing, like, even if it's just the mindset of you getting out there for your first time, and then to the point where you are now. It sounds like you have almost 10 years now. Maybe, I don't know if it's consistent or not, but of at least, probably, if you aren't there, you're trying to figure out how you're going to get there the next time.
He's talked about it every year since I've known him. So yeah, and I'm super interested as well because he makes it sound awesome.
I guess the question within all of the other probably questions I had in there is, what was that first, if you can remember, that first kind of mental process of, okay, you know what, I'm just going to get out and do it, even if it was just a simple thought and it's like, fuck it, let's do it and drive.
Yeah. So let me tell you about my first experience going out there. So this would have been probably about the same year I got the Galaxy. Bunch of greaser friends, instructor friends in Laramie, and my buddy Dirty, he was an instructor at the hot rod school at the time. He calls me up one night and he says, "Hey, what are you doing next Friday?" I'm like, "I don't know, probably drinking with you. Who knows? We're working on something, right?" And he says, "Yeah, we're going to Bonneville and you're going." I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm not going to Bonneville. Like, why would I want to drive 8 hours to go all the way out there?" He's like, "No." He says, "You're going and you need to go because it's gonna change your life." And it was kind of one of those, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Okay, fine. And I really didn't want to go. I was like, this just sounds awful. Drive all the way across Wyoming. And, if you're not from Wyoming, it's awful driving through it. And then you get out there and it's going to be 190 degrees. You're just going to die,
and you get it from both sides, from up top and coming back up from the salt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You get your undercarriage sunburnt if you're not careful out there. Yeah. So the day rolls around and he doesn't get off work until like 8 p.m. And then we hop in the truck with a couple other guys and we'd start driving like at 8 p.m. We don't get there till the sun's coming up. So we're already dead, and took like a little power nap and then made our way out to the salt for the Saturday morning. And they start running cars around 10 a.m. And the first time you hear that Doppler effect of the audio of that car way down, you can't see it because it's so far off in the distance, you can't see it. Even with binoculars, you can't see the starting line, but you can hear it. You can hear it start, and it's 5 miles away. You can hear that thing start, and then you can hear it being pushed with the push truck. You can hear the driver feathering the throttle to keep the thing alive after it's pushed off the push truck, and then building more speed. You can hear its wheels spinning, and then the driver getting out of the throttle. And then, where we were at the 5 mile, basically at the, kind of the finish line on the long course. And you can hear this thing coming and coming and coming, and the pitch is changing. And it's, we're a mile away from the course, for safety. We're a mile away, but it looks so up close because there's nothing out there, just white. There's nothing obstructing your view. And then watching that car fly past and the pitch and the sound change, and this two huge rooster tails of salt up behind it because it's doing 250, 300 miles an hour. I don't even remember what the first car was, but I was like, wow, this is something special. The whole place, like you had mentioned, it's hallowed ground. It's where Ab Jenkins and Campbell and the racers of today and yesterday went fast. And it's, it definitely digs into your heart in a deep way to be there where they were doing that stuff and seeing it happen in front of you as well.
Yeah.
So it was really strange. Yeah. I didn't want to go, but man, once I got out there, I was like, this is super cool. This is something that's not overly commercialized. It's not, Bonneville Speedweek sponsored by whatever Starbucks coffee or
Monster
whatever
energy drink.
It's not, it still had, well, Monster did have a sponsorship out there for a couple of years, but you know what? We got free Monster energy drinks and then they went away. But it comes in little waves. But I was initially reluctant to go out there because I didn't want to deal with the traveling and, what I thought was going to be not necessarily the best thing ever. And it was, like everything else in life, it's a bit of an adventure getting there, but hanging out with your friends and then getting to actually be there on that same place and see what these guys are doing. And the community of racers is super unique. If you got two guys racing in a class and one of them either breaks down, but the other guy qualifies, the guy who broke down or has the spare parts, he will gladly give the guy who's going to back up that record spare parts or engine pieces or whatever. And you just don't see that type of, camaraderie and, the way the racing used to be like that still being exercised today without the corporate influence, without the money influence, just with people who want to just see the other guy. Yeah, man, I couldn't beat him, but he's going to beat the record by X amount. So hell yeah, he can have my turbo off my car or my whatever that he needs, of course. And at the end of that, that guy just gets his name printed or her name or printed in, the record book, or maybe they get a 200 mile per hour hat or, if you're George Poteet or, rad. Those guys who, run the fastest of the event, they get the hot rod, speed of the event trophy, which is about as tall as me and I'm 6 feet tall. You get to take that home, but there's no cash payouts and it's all for just the love of,
so you can go there and just be a witness. You can just show up and walk around and watch this stuff.
Absolutely. Yep.
Are there spectator fees?
There is a spectator entry fee. It gets you in for the whole week though. It's only like $25.
Yeah.
It's just to keep the lights on. Nobody's making money. Pay for the insurance. They have volunteer crews who seriously do everything out there. The volunteers run the clocks. They lay the wires for the timing systems. They set up the cones. They have volunteers that seriously run the porta potty cleaning.
Well, and what's incredible too is you'll have volunteers that have been doing every single year that they run for 40, 50, 60 years, which is just the dedication just in that alone is incredible. And it's
so where do you stay? Like, did you just camp?
Yeah. So, so the racetrack itself is at the Bonneville Salt Flats, which is just east of the Nevada-Utah border on I-80 in northern Utah. Closest town is Wendover, which is only a couple miles away. So there's an access road that leads out and it makes a sharp bend to the right, and it's affectionately called the Bend in the Road. And this is BLM land out there. So you can camp anywhere you want, and the BLM's nice, and also the SCTA also put like porta potties out there and like hand washing stations and stuff like that. But yeah, it's totally free of charge. People have campfires, and for the most part, the party police are usually pretty tame out there. My first year, I think we got a lot of the rules that they have posted up on the boards out there, what not to do. A lot of them, I think, came from years past when I was there. My first year there was a guy they had a bonfire out there at the Bend in the Road, and the guy was burning, I think it was magnesium engine blocks. And they'd throw those on the bonfire and everybody was getting barbecued skin like instantly, because that stuff's like bright as, the sun. Just burning and flaming. And so there's on one of the signs out there we saw, do not burn incendiary devices or magnesium out here. I was like, I know where that's from.
Oh, that's great.
What is Bonneville? I have two questions. One is probably stupid. Is Bonneville actually a town, or if not, why is it?
No, Bonneville is the name of the lake that created the salt. So it was Lake Bonneville.
Right.
And then washed out, dried out. That was thousands of years ago.
Okay, that's like ancient stuff, right? Wrong, it's not like Salton Sea kind of stuff.
No.
Oh yeah.
No, it has no more rotting fish like that you're trying
we
to
might be racing on Salton Sea someday. It's a nice resort town. And, Okay.
They should just
Yeah.
drain it and just do something
Okay,
useful
second
with
question,
it. I
and
mean,
I think I
come
know
on.
the answer because you've kind of talked to me
Yeah.
about it before. But how easy and is it and welcoming is this to like get into this with knowing nothing about it? I mean, it sounds like pretty, but talk about that a little bit.
I think it's pretty welcoming, but I think, maybe it's not. I don't have a lot of other racing experience like flat track, or maybe I have a little bit of drag racing experience, but the community is definitely pretty welcoming. My experience racing, when I did, everybody there was super upfront. The tech people, the timing people,
Mm-hmm.
the folks in the pits, and and very reciprocal too. Like you go out to Speed Week, so long as someone doesn't have their arms, tearing something apart, and you can tell that they're like furiously trying to get something done on a schedule, they will usually stop and talk to
Okay.
you, or if you have questions. I took my
Mhm.
nephews out there a couple of years ago, and a nephew of mine was really interested in like electrical engineering, and they had the Ohio State Buckeye Streamliner,
cool.
which is the electric streamliner out there, and the students were out there, and my nephew and I were talking to some of the professors and the students that were helping out there, and super friendly. They had anything that they really wanted to have people be interested in this, to keep the
Mhm.
sport alive,
Yeah.
and also to share their passion. It wasn't like a standoffish, I don't know you, go
Exactly.
away.
Yeah.
I'm sponsored by, Global Corp Incorporated, and I have to win this race or I don't get paid
Got
type
it.
of attitude. It's,
Well, that's all. I mean, I still can't wait to, like I said, I haven't stepped foot on it, and just hearing you describe the first time you were there. Thank you also
Yeah.
for just that, like, beautifully articulated description of it. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
quite
gonna lie,
poetic.
like I was holding back tears where it's just that it just it pulls on me in that way that I mean
Yeah.
I definitely am going to be there, and hopefully at some point run also.
Yeah, I want to do it
So,
for sure.
so my advice is for your first time out there, just go check it out
Mhm.
and go to Speed Week
Yeah.
and go for the opening weekend, because you're going to get the fastest cars. You're going to get the biggest event. In town in Wendover, there's kind of an
Mhm.
informal car show at the Nugget Hotel. Couple hundred cars, and a lot of people I've been noticing, at least, since I've been going out there, you start seeing some cars that have definitely not been on the salt, that have been trailered out there, that are pretty highbrow stuff that people just want to have seen out there. There was um, I don't know if it was the original car, if the original car exists today, but Larry Watson made a car called the Grapevine. It's a Chevy, white, purple scallop paint job on it. Had the California yellow plate. And I was looking at this car. I'm like, I think that's one of
Oh,
Watson's
wow.
old
Oh,
cars,
I've
man.
seen a picture of
And
this
we were looking at it.
before.
We're like, that might be the original car or not. Yeah. And you see pictures all over the place, and it's like the best
Wow.
free car show
Mhm.
ever. You get the guys that have been out on the salt. You get the other guys who come in who maybe don't want to take their stuff on the
Yeah,
salt, but they just want to
definitely.
come and hang out. They bring their stuff out too. And it's not the it's not the boomer car
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah.
Zeb and I would joke.
The
It's not the
57 Chevy.
the Tri Five
Exactly.
Chevys and the
Yeah.
poodle skirts and the crybaby dolls and
It's not the Boyd
all that stuff.
Coddingtons
It's
of the early
Oh, God.
2000s.
I got stories about Boyd and Bonneville, man. I wish we had another couple hours to talk about it, but I've got Bonneville stories with Boyd.
Oh yeah, I
and him
remember
sinking his motor home
hearing
and
about
causing
that.
havoc, and
That was all over.
yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
wait.
We
Tell
were
us
there
this
that
already.
It
year.
is. Yeah, talk about this. Actually, this is funny.
Oh man. So yeah, I mean, Boyd, rest his
It
soul.
was all over the
Yeah.
ham or,
Yeah.
or something when it. I totally remember that when it happened. It was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, they sunk their huge motorhome out there, and they had other member of their crew that they were filming, I think, with a helicopter or something, that stopped on the
Yeah.
racetrack, which is kind of a big no-no, because a lot of these folks, I mean, they're working 51 weeks a year to have
Mhm.
1 week to race out there. Every minute that they can't race is kind of a big downer, So yeah, and that was
Well, it was like a
humorous,
Class
to say the
A
least. It's,
massive motorhome, completely stuck with 4 tow
yeah,
trucks.
and to get it out of
Stuck
the
as
mud
well,
was
trying to do it.
tow truck hooked up to tow
It got
truck
s-
hooked
it
up
got
to
stuck
tow
in the
truck.
salt?
It was crazy. No, so Yeah, so the salt flats, they're receding over time due to,
Mhm.
mining and kind of mismanagement. So there's kind of
Oh.
mud flats that are around them now, and it looks stable. I mean, it looks like you could drive on. You might even see tire tracks and be like, oh yeah, that's safe. And then
Yeah.
you get out there and like you're fucked. I mean, you're buried
Oh,
up to the
no.
axle and you ain't going nowhere. And it's super hard to get you out of it too. You're subject to the weather out there too and the conditions. I mean, it's an outdoor obviously thing, but from like I'm a bit of a science nerd and a geology nerd and an engineering nerd and all that stuff. So, from a geologic perspective out there, it's pretty wild. The way this place works,
Mhm.
it floods, the water evaporates off, the salt condenses into halite, makes this hard surface to race on. They groom it, and then you can go race on it. But you can get it's in a drainage basin, so if you get a huge monsoon storm 20 miles away, the next day then it floods and there's no more racing. But we've also been out there based on the lunar cycle, your tide cycle. Basically it would start pulling water out of the salt between the racetrack and the
Mm.
access road. And yeah, I was one of the years I took the Galaxy out there and it still had the bellflower tips on it. We're driving from the racetrack back out to the access road, and I started hearing the pipes gurgling.
Oh my
Gurgle,
goodness.
gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. I'm like, wow, this is getting deep. And there was a Chevy Suburban with a lift kit in front of me, and I'm watching the water level go up towards his bumper. I'm like, man, we're gonna be swimming here soon. And thankfully we didn't get any water in the car, but there was a good 8 inches of water we had to drive through for a couple miles just to get out of
Wow.
there.
I think I
And
know.
that was not because of
I
flooding.
think I
it
know
was
why you're
just
repairing some rust
way it is.
in the floors of that car now, Dan.
You think so?
Yeah.
You know what? It's totally worth it though.
Mhm.
It's totally worth it.
How
that's
how
awesome.
hot is it out there when this is going on?
So it does generally, on your typical year, it's
Okay.
going to be in the high 90s. It's going to feel like it's over 100, and you want to bring your shade canopy. You want to be bathing in, your sunblock and have a good set of sunglasses
Yeah.
on. But it's tolerable. There's kind of a light wind that's out there, and generally, as long as you're, enjoying
Or
a
two, yeah.
frosty beverage of adult type or Gatorade or whatever, staying
Yeah.
hydrated and have a big hat
Mhm.
on, you're going to be fine. And there's tons to do out there that kind of keeps your mind off of just boiling. I mean, we usually have like a CB radio that's listening to the communication system for the starting line. They transmit on an FM station. They have, well, now they only have one, but they had two really good announcers that were out there who did this for years. They had a really good camaraderie, and they knew all the teams and all the drivers and all the cars. And they would tell you what's going on with what as the guys are running. And that was always really nice. We'd have that running on the radio. And then, throughout the day, go find food, meet up with friends. You could go up to the starting line and watch them start, drive down there and get up close and personal and go walk through the pits. There's
Mhm.
vendors that are out there.
And you can
You
park
know.
an RV out there or something, right? And
Yeah.
just camp out there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, you can't camp out there at night. They kick everybody off at night, and they
Okay.
just run security at night just to keep the cars that are in impound that's qualified for a record. They go to impound overnight. They can't be
Mhm.
touched. And they have security out there patrolling and keep everybody off the salt. And it helps keep the salt from getting torn up. People making campfires and shit like that, and
Okay.
dicking around and tearing
Maybe
it up.
some behind the lens runs down the track too.
After a
The
few
midnight
beers,
run.
Yeah.
Going on.
Yeah.
set a new record.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny. What would you out of running the bike and the car? I'm sure both were awesome, but which one was more rad?
Oh man,
Because they both sound
that's hard,
super
man.
fun.
That's like
Well, that's like asking any one of us, like, do you prefer driving a car or a
Hey,
motorcycle?
I know
if
it's
you
not a
had to
fair
choose
question,
one?
but I asked it.
I'll say the experiences were different for sure and had their
Yeah.
own awesome qualities. For me, running the car out there, that was just
Sure.
all part of the trip and part of the experience of let's drive a car out there and race it and then drive it home. And also running this car, it's 50 years old, as fast as I could
Yeah,
make it
that's
go out
cool.
there. And like the bike, is a different experience. We were out there in September. It was cooler. And when you're running 150 miles an hour on a bike, it feels like you're being hugged from all directions. Really. I mean, the air pressure is pushing, just
Right.
crushing you into the bike. And it's a bit like, when you get hyper focused and you're kind of looking at the world through a straw.
Wow.
And everything else except, watching those flags on both sides of that track come up, everything else is tuned out. It's like this meditative bliss almost. Part of your mind is relaxing on that RPM gauge and watching the red RPM gauge flash at me because it wanted me to shift, even though I'm in sixth gear and there's nowhere else to go. But it's really, just like nirvana, man. Just awesome experience.
Wow.
That's incredible.
You really get done with that and you really feel like, I don't know, you did yoga for an hour or something, or whatever your relaxation du jour is, or whatever that brings you peace and makes you feel
That's
really
killer.
great. That's
I want to
what
do
it
the
felt
bike
like.
thing.
It was
That just
awesome.
sounds so cool.
Yeah. Didn't you get you brought JJ one year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so JJ, a couple years ago, he wanted to race a bike out there.
Is this your son?
Oh,
No,
no,
it's
one
a
of our
buddy.
Oh,
buddies
sorry.
here
I
in
don't
town.
know.
Yeah.
I'm pretending I'm a listener because I don't
No, that's
really
good.
know
Yeah.
you guys' friend groups either.
You're like, oh yeah, JJ,
Yeah,
I know
of
that
course.
guy.
Yeah, it's like, sweet.
Yeah, totally. He's a dick. So and maybe it was me just continually talking about it, but he wanted to try racing a bike out there, and he had a little bit different experience than I did. He went for the 130 class, which was fine. I had given him the links and I told him, tech inspection is going to go through this list line by line. Every single thing on this list they will look at.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of said, oh, okay, and kind of thought, oh, it'd be fine if I show up and some of the stuff isn't done. And they said, no, that's not okay. You must have A, B, C, D. You have to have every single thing on this
I never
list.
heard
So
that.
I was there
Okay.
and kind of, talked to the tech inspector and said, okay, these things here, I think we can fix this here real quick before we have to get out of line, and so I ran over and stole some, you have to have bolt-in valve stems on your wheels. That's a safety thing. You're going those speeds, your valve stem, just with the forces starts to bend over on a rubber valve stem. It's going to tear that valve stem out. You get a flat, then you're going down and you become a human crayon on a salt surface,
Gross.
Yeah.
more or less. So I went over there was a trailer that was parked nearby and I'm like, I need some metal valve caps. So I walked over and I'm like, oh, here's some. Just unscrewed them from the trailer, ran back over, screwed them back on. Tech guy says, okay, got metal valve caps, let's look at the next thing you're missing. And, and then he, you got to wait in line like everybody else. And everybody's got to kind of take their turn, like, kindergartners at the drinking fountain. And that's life.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there's wind delays, and there was a wind delay out there. And he was kind of running out of time, getting frustrated. So he thought, I'll just run it as fast as I can. And that way I'll get my timing slip, just seeing how fast I could go. Well, he did that, and he got down to the timing tower, and they said, no, you're done. And we're not going to give you the slip, and we're not going to tell you how fast you went. And you're going to have to go through tech if you want to come back.
So he broke out of his license.
Yeah, so he broke out of the 130 bracket. And, that's okay. If that's what he wanted his experience to be, that's
so
fine.
So they do that to
Yeah.
discourage you from riding beyond safe or something?
Well,
sure.
Discourage you to do what he did.
So he went over.
I just wanted to see how fast
No,
he
I,
went over.
I get that, but what if it was a legitimate accident or something? I mean, it just doesn't matter, right? If you go outside of it.
Well, so you can't, I mean, I don't see how it could be. So your first run out, at least in those classes, your first run is called a calibration run, and they tell you how fast they want you to run. Usually it's 100 miles an hour or 110. And then that way your target is to try and run that speed. And that way, how far off your speedometer is.
Gotcha.
So if they told you on your calibration run to run 100 and you ran at like 140, they would probably say something's really off here. You either don't know what you're doing or you're being a dick.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, you're, best case, you're going to get a talking to. Worst case, they're going to say you got to go back through tech, pay your entry fee again. And if you do it again, we're just going to tell you not to race here.
So
and I sort of get it. Some people are like, well, I just want to go as fast as I want. And I think the motorcycle speed event at the end of August, they do have a run what you brung event where you can pay a fee. You can run, I think it's as fast as you want, but you only get one run.
Okay.
And maybe that's the avenue for folks who want to do that. For me, I kind of wanted more of the experience of what it would be like if you were actually trying to run like a class record where you have to back that record up and do it twice.
Absolutely.
And, it sounds easy on a sport bike, but I can tell you, I weigh 240 on a 180 horsepower bike that's fairly streamlined. It was not easy getting that thing into the 150s, and it was even more difficult with the Galaxy, because that's the 130 mile an hour club. You only have 1 mile to get up to speed. In the 150 club, you have 2 miles.
Wow.
So you got to go 130 miles an hour in 1 mile. So
Jeez.
yeah,
That's cool. It was briefly talked about. Well, it was kind of the basis of that last story with your buddy, but about the licenses. So
Yep.
you have to build up your mile per hour licenses.
correct.
So there's some. I have a buddy who's. I don't know if you're familiar with the car club the Bean Bandits.
Yeah.
So I have a buddy who's a Bean Bandit, and I was able to chat for, I believe it was their anniversary party, with some of the old guys who've been running. I mean, a
Forever.
long time.
Yeah.
Just kind of, I mean, not only just like some of the coolest people you could talk to, but just kind of picking their brain as far as kind of how I'm doing yours almost, and how they would recommend, because in my dumb young brain was, I'm going to build this bike to try to go for the record first time out, and they said, yeah, you know what, you can do that, but just be prepared to be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And be prepared to invest a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of, not burn out on
Exactly.
it before you reach that
Mhm.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing he said too, which it gave me my homework, is you don't really know the rule book until 3-4 years out there.
Yeah.
And so they gave me actually my very first rule book, this exact one.
Yep.
And I'm not kidding you. It was 2016. He's like, yeah, we got 5 of these things, and
Oh, yeah.
2 of them are in the truck right now.
Yep.
So for a solid year, that was in my bathroom, and that was
Yeah.
my literature.
Well, and for Max and for, Evan,
Yeah.
I mean, this thing's an
Oh
inch
my
thick.
god.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
this is records and just the rules
Jeez.
Mhm.
for classes.
If you're looking at going to the 130 or the 150, like if
Yeah.
how do you become a record holder then? Like if you're just supposed
So-
to stay between 130 and 139.
No. So those are just amateur classes. Those 2 classes are just to get people interested in the sport in an affordable way and
Okay.
in an accessible way.
Gotcha.
And really your record is that, I'm now
you
a member
did
of the
it.
130 club and the 150 club.
Gotcha.
And I get a patch and I get my little certificate I have hung on my fridge next to my daughter's drawings, all that good stuff. No, if you want to, you got to go play with the big boys if you want to go and set records. So you got to, get your record book, make sure that all that stuff is built accordingly, have it teched. You have to go through your licensing depending on how fast that thing's going to go.
How do they break down
You yourself
classes
have to be licensed.
for records?
So there's
Type
Yeah,
of
so
motor,
there's
type of car,
literally-
like what?
hundreds of different combinations
Okay.
of the classes based on engine size, based on vehicle type. Take for instance, like the big streamliners, there's, blown fuel streamliner, which is supercharged or turbocharged fuel, which is, not gasoline.
Mhm.
And then streamlined special construction, purpose built vehicle. And then they have
altered wheelbase.
altered wheelbase, unlimited multi-engine craziness.
Okay.
And then they have classes for
That's what all of those numbers mean
yeah.
on.
So
Yeah,
BFS is like blown fuel streamliner, and and then they have classes for like Lakester. Lakester is like, belly tankers, the old bomber drop tanks that, they basically put axles in and put an engine in and go race those because they're really aerodynamic and they're rad, man. A lot of California guys run those. Old Crow Speed Shop, a lot of cool stuff, man. Those are so rad to see.
Absolutely.
And other classes and that's Lakester is what those fit into. And then they have, all the car classes, roadsters, pickup trucks, there's engines based on, cubic inch size from like 500 inches up all the way down to, 30 inches for like a V8, I think. And then motorcycles go from 50 cc all the way up to 3000 plus. And then all these designations for, the streamlining, the construction of it, and there's rules associated with those.
Wow.
So you could take like a flathead Model A and go
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a class for it.
Yes.
There's a lot of them out
Yeah.
there.
Cool.
Yeah. If you're super rich and you have like an Arden overhead OHV conversion for it, then you can run in like, it's like the XOF class, or there's all these crazy class designations, and they have a class specifically for flatheads that have overhead conversions.
Okay.
It's,
No
I mean, how
way.
rad is that?
Would
That is
they
awesome.
It's so cool.
if
Yeah.
you had some new combo, would they make a class for you, or does there have to be enough demand to be worthwhile?
So they do have new classes that come out though, and you'll see those published in the records and in the books, and they'll have no time associated with no driver. It's an open record, so they do create new classes. I don't know what the rules are for having one made,
Okay.
but there's already, you think about it, thousands of combos.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's down to like, oh well, this motor with this spark plug gap.
No.
A red for
It's not like it's not baseball like micro records or micro whatever.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering. It
accolades.
sounds like a sweet way to get a new record. You just come up with some
You know what? There's
absurd combo.
Evan, you
together.
bring up a point. There is some truth to that. So there are open records that guys will go out and chase specifically just because they're, as long as your vehicle fits within that designation.
Right.
If you run 1 mile an hour,
you set the record.
you're now the record holder
Right.
for that. Which is pretty cool. And, I don't think there's any shame in it. And I've never heard of anybody being like, oh, he just went for an open record. That's lame. It's like, no, you still set a record. You still built something.
Sometimes you got to work smarter, not harder. You find the,
exactly.
you find the open record.
Well, to give you a spread too, I mean, there are records and computers for steam powered vehicles, turbine, of course. Those are some of the big guys.
Yeah, Vesco and crew. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, even down to like steam powered vehicles, there's a class and rules you have to follow also to run.
There's a steam class.
I'm gonna run.
Oh yeah,
are you kidding?
Yeah. No,
not
what,
kidding.
What do people run in the steam class?
Let me look it up. I got the records right here.
And what is the record? Like 25 miles an hour? Like what? How do you?
No, you'd be surprised. You would really be surprised. So what I've found too is
what in what?
Custom build.
It's just S class,
car.
so it's probably a streamliner with a steam engine.
Oh my god, that's insane.
So it's so what kind of maybe what you're getting at the initial question was, but you didn't understand some of the nuts in a good way, the best way possible. Is like so you'll find some of these like more kind of assumptions of like fringe records that like, oh, I'll just go out there and try to do this one.
Yeah.
Like on the 50cc motorcycle, it's one of the most competitive classes to break a record. Is like there are groups of people that just love the maybe it's just they're that crazy and obsessed with just that big of a challenge that you will find some of the more fringe records that are out there are some of the most competitive. And it could be between one or two that have been going on, like different computers for 10 years or possibly even more than that, but, or likely more.
Totally.
It does kind of put a little bit of a wave over, not a wave, but shine some light on just some of the fanatics of just running the salt. Which is, in my book, is super appealing. These are the people I want to talk to. And
yeah, that is really cool.
And I think what you did mention is the camaraderie between people and competitors is everyone wants to see everyone succeed.
Yeah.
And more than not, unfortunately, because, and I think it's a product of when things do fail, is death is very much on the table.
Yeah.
And no one wants to see that happen.
No.
So we're like, oh, hands down, I'll help you out on this because I don't want to see another one of my friends not come back from this run.
Yeah.
And so, and there's that respect that is I would say in a that's needed for say running the salt.
Well, and the natural events with, I may not see this guy next year. A lot of, you've been going out there for several decades. You know these these people you've been racing with for years, and oh shit, I came back the next year and my competitor he died. So that factors into it too. These very long-term traditions of racing out there, for sure. Oh, and Evan, real quick, 131 for 50cc.
Oh my
yeah,
God. That must be
S-F. That must be streamline F engine. Yeah.
Wow, that's killer.
So like I just Googled because I wasn't actually quite sure about deaths on the salt flats? Is it somebody dies every year, or is that's like a rare
Yeah,
thing?
that's a good question.
So I don't think it's an every year thing, but it's not something that's, not going to happen at least every couple years. I think it's inherent to the sport and also to the, the laws of physics and the forces at play. If you're doing 400 miles an hour and your car goes sideways, it's going to either take off into the air, or it's going to roll, or if you're real lucky, it's just going to spin. But yeah, those are very real things that can and do happen out there.
Yeah, I just saw
And
some gal named Jessie Coombs.
Yeah, that was.
She was doing an
couple
event
years ago, I think it
elsewhere.
was,
She wasn't
yeah.
at Bonneville, but yeah.
Oh,
And yeah, we could do a whole podcast on
no, that was real tragedy.
Yeah.
The whole community really took a big hit on that
Yeah.
one, I would
yeah.
say.
I mean, it's so funny. If you think about it, you're running a car, like you said about the valve stem. You're running a car at 130 miles an hour, and your front left wheel goes flat.
Mhm.
I mean, you are toast. You are toast.
Yeah, I don't see how you recover from that.
Well, hopefully you
spin.
Yeah.
yeah.
and have a change of shorts and, get to go back through tech and fix your car. And that'll be the wildest part of it. But yeah.
Well, hopefully you're catching it before it becomes a real.
Well, yeah. And that's why the tech
real
inspection
danger.
there is, the scrutineering is there.
Mhm.
That stuff to, keep you safe, even if you think everything's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing. Like when we go on trips and Max is like, dude, what's wrong with your rear rotor on your bike? You remember that?
Yes.
And I was like, I didn't even notice it. I looked at it and I had totally worn through the brake pads on my bike.
No,
I was like, oh my God.
Don't worry about it. You
Didn't
just
even
keep
know,
riding
man.
to Mexico.
Yeah. No. So one real quick, interesting little tidbit. So I was out there one year. Is one of the first years I went out, and the announcer, and this plays in with the whole, circle of life out there. And the announcer was talking about, this is car so and so driving. They're running on a blah 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 record. And the announcer said after that, he said, and making his final pass was another name. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. And I actually asked a couple guys around there. They didn't know either. And somebody in the pits, I'd asked about that. And they said, yeah, that's someone's final run. Basically, their ashes are packed in that person's parachute on that car that whatever.
Oh, what?
And, as part of their final wish, they wish to have some of their ashes interred out there. I was like, man, talk about the goosebumps on my arm just remembering that. I was like, so cool.
I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah.
Mine just fluttered up.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's kind of cool. I like that.
Well, that's kind of similar to, I mean, not as cool, I gotta say, but is when there's a passing. I used to race flat track motorcycles, and you would do laps turning right when someone passed as an honor to them.
Yeah,
wasn't ashes, but just out of respect, I guess, and showing your respect, which I thought was really cool, and something. Unfortunately, a few times I've been a part of that I felt really honored to be a part of and show respect by turning right, which is something I tried to train myself not to do.
Yeah.
But what a cool.
Because there's somebody that died through racing, or just
not necessarily. Yeah, usually.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty rare these days that someone dies while racing flat track.
Yeah,
just someone in the community. It's even if it was like an old time legend. It didn't necessarily always have to be someone in the community. One of them was in the community, and then the other was just a legend that passed. And it's like, you know what? It's race day. We're showing our respect. That's our day.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, flat track is a really tight family too, which I was very thankful to be a part of. And I'm not saying I'm out of it. It's just I'm just not doing it right now, because it is something where after the first time getting on the track and completely sucking, it was the biggest smile on my face. And then, okay, I'm coming back to the next one.
Yeah.
And I feel like Bonneville
You're gonna get
is going to be
in.
something like that for me.
Similar.
it's something that I have been trying to maybe save myself from until I've got the next 20 years free for the rest of my life.
Yeah, well, that's
But-
not going to happen. So just fucking do it.
Yeah, that should be easy to
Yeah.
get to.
Just go.
But
do
you,
it.
if you don't do it now,
it's a
then-
commitment.
then
Don't
when,
wait.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean-
No, and it's there's been other things that kind of have jumped in the way of me getting, say, my first initial build out there. But in conclusion, I guess, of what one of the bean bants mentioned to me was just find $2,500, $5,000 motorcycle, whatever, that can get you to 150, 175, 150 probably.
yeah,
And then just take your time first year, just use that year to build up your license.
Yeah.
And then keep coming back and then just slowly work up to where you feel like you're ready to attempt something.
yeah. Try
And
it out.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because things that are in your head are not going to necessarily be the same thing translated on the salt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's
Sometimes the idea in your head sounds a lot better as an idea, and then once you actually get into something, you're kind of like, I don't know. This sounded a lot better in my head. There was like guitars
Mhm.
playing, and there was like chicks in lingerie with pitchers
Yeah.
of beer. This seemed
Yeah.
a whole lot better idea in my head, and now this
Yeah,
is just
that'll
kind of
happen.
not really my thing.
Well, for me is where I know it's something that it is just going to take that first step onto the salt.
Yeah.
Is I've for very many occasions I have very freely just disregarded my life to where the point where I now hold a very huge and large respect of it. And so when I am putting myself into those dangerous situations where life is on the table, it comes with a lot of respect for what I'm doing. And slowly baby stepping up is I guess proof of that, because that's what I'm willing
it
and
sounds
wanting
like
to
now
do.
is a better time to do it than doing it.
So I think,
Yeah,
15 years ago.
I
when you
got a
wouldn't take it as
5-year
seriously.
plan, I'd say.
Yeah. So what are you doing in
and-
2023 in August, first week of August? Why don't we just, come on, Evan?
Yeah, there you go.
I've been telling you to go
I'll
every
go.
year since I've known you.
Yeah, I know.
I think we
know,
need to
I
just,
know.
make it speed week and just do it.
I think I can make it happen.
So what is
for
the
next year,
difference
yeah.
between the one in August and the one
Yeah.
in September?
Just
Do
different.
you know what? I'm willing to commit to this right now.
If you want to do it, I'll go
but
next year.
I'm willing to
Yeah,
do
I'd
this.
like to
Okay.
go. I've been
And in
Let's
fun.
just
fact,
go to spectate.
I really want to.
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
August. Go to Speed Week.
I kind of want to bring a bike. I think I could get work to sponsor part
Well,
of
see,
a bike.
you would
and
have a month between
I would
going to
love to
Speed
do it.
Week to finish a bike or whatever until September. You could still do it.
Yeah.
I don't want that being the reason why you back out, though. Also,
Yes, you can't
What?
say I'm not going to Speed Week because I'm working on this $500 jalopy pile of crap that I picked up.
yeah.
Oh, please! I would
You've
not.
never done
It would
that.
be a $600. It would be a $600 bike.
Oh man.
You can ride
Totally.
the.
Well,
You can,
Are you saying I have a reputation for buying crappy motorcycles?
you can ride the.
I'm not saying you don't have a reputation for that.
You can ride. You can ride the Lion Rider.
Oh, dude. I don't think that thing would make the
It
30
wouldn't-
mile an hour.
it wouldn't
club,
make it
let
down the
alone
road.
130.
Oh God.
No, let's make it happen next year, Evan. I've been bugging you long enough. You can
Okay,
finally get it
okay.
off here.
Yes.
You
yes,
can finally
you're
tell
right.
me, yeah, man, I finally went. It was awesome. You were right. Dan, you were right.
Yeah. Well, I already know you're. It's not like I ever thought you were wrong. It's just I never actually make time to do it. No, I'm in for next
That
year.
sounds
fun.
I'll
I
commit
wanna
to
do
that.
that.
I think
Yeah,
that'd
totally.
be awesome.
well, I'm already there,
Yeah.
so if you don't show up, I've got a new buddy. I can go
Totally,
with,
man.
meet.
Yeah.
I'll
there.
show you guys around.
Oh, you're not.
Dude, they
Look.
got a strip joint in Wendover if that's your thing. They got gambling. They got, they got everything
I'll
you need.
share Dan with you, but you're not stealing Dan
They-
from me. Okay? I'll do that.
They got
All
$10
right.
showers
No,
at the
I
truck
like
stop.
it.
I mean, they got all your needs covered.
Oh well, in 100%.
I'm using the
Oh,
hand
that's
pumps
rad.
for the porta potty for my shower. So maybe you want to
Bet.
pull back your
The Purell shower.
invitation here.
Purell shower. Oh gosh.
Some moist
Yeah,
towelettes
that
from the
sounds
buffet.
rad.
All right. Well, should we
Yeah.
wrap this up?
Yeah.
Totally.
I think so.
Dan, thank you so much for being
Yeah,
on.
man.
And
Thank you guys
thanks,
for
Dana.
inviting me over to. Yeah, this was awesome. I hope Bob really likes it.
yeah.
Oh, he will. He's not picky.
As soon as this was mentioned, I've been very excited.
Totally.
And the only thing I do want to at least put out for Bob in case he's made a little extra tips this weekend is shouting out SaveTheSalt.org.
Yes.
So that's a Save the Salt Foundation, and purely just to share, spread history, and preserve the salt, because unfortunately
cool.
that is the Bonneville Salt Flats is at a continuous risk of no longer being able to even go out and run on it.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Is there like groups or something trying to shut it down for environmental stuff? Is that
No, it's
going on? Like,
it's just there's not much there anymore to,
Yeah.
or at least what it was, and it is continually has been a potential threat
okay.
that there's just no more salt to safely run. And I would hate in say our lifetime that we see the
gets
last
shut down.
year the Bonneville Salt Flats
Yeah.
is able to run. So
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
where recognizing the potential threat of losing it is time that are if you're alive to
do it.
to do something, even if it's just a quick donation. I'm sure $5 goes away
Yeah.
if it's
They're always out there at the events, and
mhm.
buy some of their merch, make a donation, or at least become
Yeah.
educated to the problem.
Mhm.
I was going to ask you, can you go out there and like when none of this is going on and
Yeah,
then just go
that's when it's
haul ass
free.
on the salt flats? Like, you can do that, right? No, if it's BLM land, nobody's going to stop you from
Yeah.
going out there and driving 100
Well,
miles an hour for fun,
if the
right?
BLM do catch you going that fast, I mean that's the that's the downside.
But it's not like there's
Yeah.
salt cops, right? Like who's gonna enforce it?
Yeah, they do patrol.
But is there a speed
I
limit
think it's
out there?
55.
And
I think is what the posted speed limit is on the salt.
oh, so they actively do not want people just going out there dicking
Well,
around, going as fast
Dude,
as
it's a
possible.
long way to like a trauma center. I mean, if something goes wrong
Yeah.
and you have a bad day out there.
Well, I'm not saying I'm going to do it. I was just wondering
Just
if
asking
it was
for a
like
friend.
enforced or something. Well,
Yeah.
Well, and it's really discouraged too, because even after my last mention is trying to stay off the track because it is degrading essentially. Any more, say, some idiot doing donuts out in the salt,
disrespectful.
it's definitely highly yeah, absolutely. So if you do want to be an asshole out there, just stay off the track.
Well, I wasn't planning on it. I'm just asking
for
questions.
Oh, no. I wasn't saying you, but
well, I think it'd be reasonable to think I would do that. I'm just saying that I won't.
all right, so we got one.
No, I don't. That doesn't
For
sound
Bob,
like a good idea.
the
I was just
BLM
wondering.
agent, Evan is just joking about this.
Yeah,
just joking
exactly.
But is the track marked otherwise? Like when this is not going on? Like, so would you
No,
know
they pull the markers
that
and they
you
do
were
move the
around?
track every year based on the conditions.
Okay.
But you
Got
can
it.
see it out there. You'll know where it is. You can definitely see it. So
Okay.
Yeah, because it's probably the most groomed
Yep.
area out there.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just look for the
That makes sense.
the salt that's 150 feet wide and 7 miles long that's perfectly flat.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Might be able to find it from that description. Nice.
Yeah, thank you guys again for having me on. This was a gas. I would
Yeah.
love to come on
Yeah.
again.
Thanks,
and
man.
just-
Thanks for joining us, Dano.
Oh, do you
Chew
know?
the fat,
I feel
man.
like I'm sure we haven't even tapped into some of the cool conversations we can have.
Oh, yeah.
So
more.
Yeah.
love to
stuff.
have you back.
Yeah, man. Thanks again, guys.
Is there anything you want to shout out where people can find you? And
Oh yeah.
we'll be
you got
sure
anything
and at
interesting?
least post one or many videos that you want to
Yeah,
send
man.
our way
I'll send
too
you guys
for-
some photos, and I got some good ones.
What you don't know is Dan's a big social media influencer, so he's got a lot of brand recognition to
Yeah.
push.
I got
so.
exactly 0 collabs.
Yeah. So Dan, actually send me a couple pictures of the Country Squire or the Country Sedan, and I'll
Yeah.
post them on our
Yeah.
post them on our Instagram so people can see your cool car.
Totally, man. Yep.
Yeah, it's badass. All right, right on. We'll check out allwheelspodcast.com and our Instagram's the same and all that, and contact at allwheelspodcast.com. And we'll be back next week. I don't know with what, but we'll find out then.
Good
All
night.
right. See you guys.
Thank you.